Bishop Richard, can you explain something about the background to the idea of having a year of engagement for the diocese?
It's part of our general strategy where we're trying to encourage a much more outward-looking church within the diocese. We've had, of course, the year of prayer, where we were thinking about prayer as the very foundation for all that we do. The last year was the year of faith, where we were thinking about building up our own faith and our own trust in God. And this year is very much a turning outward to see how we as church communities can serve and love the communities around us and share something of the good news with them, both with word and with action. So it's the third of a trilogy, if you like, trying to embed some of the values that are so important to us as a church family into the life of the church.
We've been talking a lot about how the 5 marks of mission are very much about how we engage with our communities. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Well, I think there's something about that framework. It's often helpful, isn't it, when we're thinking about anything strategic, outreach. What are the areas that we want to look at? And the 5 marks of mission provide that sort of framework. They're identified as an integral part of what it is to be part of the Church of England, part of the Anglican Communion. They can be summarised in sort of one sort of little word for each one, but essentially they're about how do we proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ, how do we encourage people to grow in discipleship, how do we take responsibility for serving the poor, how do we address matters of justice, and how do we think about our responsibility as good stewards of the earth. And all of these are integral to what it is to be a Christian witness, what it is to be an agent, by God's grace, to be an agent of transformation in society. So it's helpful, I hope it's helpful for all of us to think through some of those things. And I think it's also true that for different churches, perhaps different emphases will be just part and parcel of who they are, because engagement, mission is not a one-size-fits-all. It's not trying to constrain everybody into one particular pattern. It's actually living out of authentically who we are as different communities and seeking to serve appropriately in our context.
Nicol, you've obviously been in the parish and you're about to go back into the parish. I mean, how do things like the 5 marks of mission work out in the context of parish ministry?
I think the 5 marks of mission are really about how we engage with people. It's about building relationships, and the 5 marks of mission can really strengthen those relationships. So for example, 2 of the marks of mission, tending for those who are vulnerable and transforming unjust structures. Something we did in my last parish is we always had a food bank collection, for example, but we wanted to make that more meaningful. We wanted that engagement to be deeper. So with the school, we took members from the school council and together we did the food collection and went to the food bank where they engaged with us. They showed us around, they talked to us about how the food bank works, what is impacting their clients. And the outcome was, not only was that triangle of engagement strengthened, the school, the food bank and the church, but it meant that going forward, we were able to engage in a much more meaningful way.
And of course we're starting the year of engagement with a launch event in the cathedral on the afternoon of the 4th of January, right in sort of Christmas and Epiphany. Yes, please do come. And then having other events throughout the year which are advertised widely for people to come along to. When we get to the end of the year of engagement, what would you like to say this has happened because of the year of engagement?
I hope that the little local parish churches who bless and serve our communities might have discovered maybe just one thing that they could do slightly differently, or an event that they could have put on that connects them more deeply with the communities they serve, that builds more effective bridges over which the gospel can travel. And perhaps to think about how the whole life of the church, we talked about the sort of holistic view of the 5 marks of mission, how people can see the opportunities that we have through the normal run of events that we use to serve the church, just each one to take people on just a little further, one step at a time, in their journey towards God, and to see this as not something that's, you know, freaky and something for enthusiasts, but something that's just an integral part of what it is to be God's people in the Diocese of Hereford today.
We're talking about mission and evangelism in a very holistic context that engages with society and community, as well as thinking about what we proclaim and the invitation to follow Christ. What are some of your own experiences of mission and evangelism in your ministry?
I think one of the real problems that people have with evangelism is they have a very unhelpful stereotype. You know, that it's involving people with big black Bibles in shopping centres shouting at people who then quickly rush by on the other side. Evangelism is just, as Michael Green said, one beggar telling another where to find bread. And it has to primarily start out of relationship. And where all of us as Christians are called to be witnesses. And it is about telling our story. And I think we live in a culture today where authoritative statements, you know, from me or from anyone else don't hold any water at all. But actually people like to listen to one another's stories. And I hope that in this year of engagement, one of the things we will be able to do is to help people to do that. So, I mean, my experience very often in just sort of normal conversations that I have with people is perhaps gently steering the opportunity to just say something of my own experience of Christ, and try to, when I'm listening to people, and I think it always starts with listening, try to share with them when the opportunity arises. It's not imposing things on people. That's really important, I think, to see, okay, where are you in your spiritual journey, your understanding of God, and how would particular aspects of the gospel story relate to you, where you are? So over the course of the last year, we've been doing spiritual question times in a number of places. We hope we'll carry those on. And those are opportunities actually primarily for people to ask questions about faith, and we hope to address those questions respecting where those people are coming from and seeking to sort of meet them at their point of intellectual inquiry. So I think it's really important when we think about evangelism that we try to set aside some of these really unhelpful stereotypes and think about it much more in terms of just listening and sharing our story. And I think that opens up the possibility of engaging with people, because I think people are spiritually hungry and we have something to share that can meet that hunger.
And I think it's really exciting that this year of engagement, if for churches which are following the lectionary, we are focused on the Gospel of Luke, and he has such a passion for people who are marginalised, who are, you know, just weren't heard, the women, children, the sick. And we're going to hear some really fantastic stories from the Gospel of Luke that Jesus was telling that are just going to be wonderful opportunities for churches to have great discussions about, and perhaps use them as jump-off points for engagement with their local community.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful actually, and that focus of the Gospel of Luke I think will be really brought out. And one of the things I know we want to do through the year is focus on the stories of what's going on in local churches where there's already good things happening in different areas of the 5 Marks of Mission, and we very much want to bring that to a fore alongside that as well. And I think the emphasis on listening is really important. There's a whole thing in mission thinking that they tend to refer to as double listening. And the idea is we're listening to our tradition and our story, but we're also listening to what God is doing in the world out there. And there's a phrase that is often used about mission being seeing what God is doing and joining in, assuming that God's already at work in people's lives, and making connections, just as you say. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Nicol, I know you're moving on from the diocese, but what do you hope people gain from the year of engagement?
I hope they're going to be inspired by Jesus, by the gospel, by their context, to just be finding fresh ways to share the good news of Jesus. I think our churches do an amazing job, but there's never anything negative about saying, you know what, let's take a new look, and how can we bring the light, love and joy of Jesus Christ to the people amongst whom we live every single day.
Thank you very much.